thing you want to think about when you're working with slabs is, do you have the right tools to make a consistent slab? So the types of tools that you need are these boards, which are single thick wooden boards. Some of them back there are glued together. Those would be a lot, for larger projects. For projects that we're working on, you probably just stick with the single thick boards. So avoid grabbing the double thick ones because those will be much too large for your project. The other thing you're going to need is a rolling pin. Right? Rolling pins are great because they're flat, they're round, and you can actually flatten the clay out to the right thickness doing that. So the first thing you want to do, grab a lump of clay, and I'm just going to take a chunk of this because I'm not going to make a super large slab. And this is called wedging, like you've seen before in some of the other projects. If you take different pieces of clay and you're putting them together, you want to wedge them so that way there aren't any gaps between them. So I wedge the clay a little bit just to make sure that it's all stuck together. Those shales will begin to kind of line up. Then what you want to do, and it's going to be a little bit loud in here when you're doing this, is you'll take the clay and you start flattening just by pounding it down onto the surface of your board. If I were to just take a big lump of clay and just use the rolling pin right away, it's going to stick to the board super easy. And it's better to do this because you're letting gravity do the work a little bit for you. So then after that, I take my 2 sticks and I put them on either side of the clay. Then I take the rolling pin and I'm going to start rolling it out. Now the tendency is the clay will start getting some of its moisture to go into the board, and that becomes a sticky surface for your project. So you want to lift the clay up every so often, move it to a slightly different area, and continue rolling it flat. Now before you go all the way thin, if you've got really wet clay that you're working with, you could actually grab some newspaper from the front of the room over here, just right by the door, and you take an actual section of the newspaper that you put underneath the clay. Now I'm not talking like a single piece of newspaper. You want to go for a few pages thick at least. Put that after you've already flattened this a little bit, so when you do your final flattening of the clay, this for sure will not be stuck to the board, because you'll be very unhappy if you make a perfect slab and you cut it all out and it's just stuck on the board and you have to start over on it. Right, after you flatten the clay, now it's time to use a paper template if it makes sense for your idea. So mine, I'm working with triangles. So I've got some paper that I folded into different triangles so that I can make slabs of different sizes. And I'm just going to cut out as many as I can out of the slab that I made. So I line it up. I'm just going to trace around it. Notice how I'm tracing first, I'm not cutting first. Can try to fit as many of these on here as I can. So you can just imagine I'd be filling this whole thing up with slabs, that I'm going to cut out. For now, I'll just do this. Then after that, what you'll want to do is use a fettling knife to cut right along the lines. Right? If you don't use a fettling knife, your lines aren't going to be as exact. And I'm not just going around the shape with the fettling knife. I'm taking straight lines. If you do have more of a curved line that you're cutting out, cut off just sections of it and then remove the clay around your slab rather than trying to pull your shape out of that slab. Now the best thing you can do with your slabs is to try to keep them in their shape. So be very careful as you're moving them around, and then you take this and you put it on a project board, a different one, that you're going to be using for your project, and you'd layer newspaper between them. So I'll take both shapes so that way they can dry out a little bit before I start putting them together. So that's the way that you work with slabs. Again, if I were to take this wet clay and try to put it together right now, you notice how the slabs are just kind of warping a lot? We want to go towards a different stage of clay called leather hard before we attach them, so that way they keep their shape. Otherwise they'll just start to kind of fall over and not keep a nice shape. So that's how you get started with your project. I'll be doing some more demonstrating on how to connect them together at another class. Okay?